me, glorious. Step one, achieve. Good morning, everybody. Everyone on Zoom, hello. As has been said, my name is Emma, and I've got the great joy of speaking today on humility. I did think it was the last one in the sermon, but I have checked, and it's the penultimate one, so I'm humbling myself by getting it wrong already. But it did amuse me that humility has come so late on in our discipleship series, so I just imagined it like ushering in all of the other discipleship aspects first, going, no, you go first, you go you go first. That would maybe have invalidate at least half of you. So this morning we're going to do that in three ways. So these three words on the screen. So humility embodied, humility emulated, and humility embraced. So if it's helpful and to have it open in the Pew Bibles or on your phone, it's Philippians 2:1-13, and that is page 1179 in the Pew Bibles, if that's helpful for you to have it open. So we're going to start with Jesus, very good place to start. Paul uses this example of Jesus in the passage as the ultimate embodiment of humility. So in verses 6-11, we see Paul describing the amazing and incredible person that is Jesus, who was both fully God and also fully man. Yet shows this most unthinkable topsy-turvy demonstration of humility, being born as a baby, and all of that involves nappy changes and things. Lived as a man, will have gone through puberty, all of those earthly things, and then died on a cross. Despite all of his divinity, he did that so that we could live and live our best life. There's a song by Graham Kendrick that you might be familiar with called The Servant King that puts it in this way. Hands that flung stars into space, to cruel nails surrendered. This is our God, the servant king. I remember those words are so phenomenal because they are just so true. That Jesus, mighty, powerful, incredible as he was, puts the needs and the well-being of others first. He came to be a servant. He is both king and servant, which is an English term, a complete oxymoron. They're two things that just shouldn't go together. Now, lovely as King Charles is, I'm sure, I've never met him, I can't imagine him coming around to the vicarage to help us with washing up, load the dishwasher, or be setting out the chairs for his coronation. It just wouldn't be a done thing. But Jesus did that. Jesus came to serve those he was with. He's something altogether different. In verses 6-8, Paul writes this about Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of the servant, being made in human likeness. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on the cross. And as I was thinking about these verses this week, they hold echoes to me of Micah chapter 6, verse 8, which some of you might be familiar with, where God instructs his people, his disciples, how to live their best life. And he says that we are to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. And I think Jesus, through his life, just perfectly and wholly lives this out, not using his status as the Son of God, this almighty person, as an ace up his sleeve or a way to be revered anymore than other people. He was just unfair in the way that he lived. He came to serve and was obedient to God's redemption plan for us as he submitted to death on that cross, which we'll remember and celebrate in a couple of weeks' time, just so that we can be forgiven for all the wrong things, the rubbish stuff we did. That is humility in action, I think, in humility and mercy in action. And it can appear really shocking and baffling to our human reasoning and logic, especially when you think of the miracles and wonders that we see Jesus perform. But Jesus doesn't make sense by our worldly expectation because he came to show a different way. That's the point of him being. We see some significant examples of Jesus' humility in the events of Maundy Thursday, which is the week on Thursday. Firstly, Jesus humbled himself by washing his disciples' feet. I think I've got an image of some smelly feet because as has been, no, that's it's lovely. We'll move on. I just like that picture. Humbling myself again by being wrong. But it's been pointed out many times that when Jesus washes his disciples' feet, they won't have been clean feet, they didn't have odor meters or foot freshener. They didn't have lovely boots that would have kept their feet clean. These are sandals, and they'll have been walked over terrains that aren't nicely tarmacked. They will have been muddy, they'll have been mucky, they'll have been smelly. And so for Jesus to humble himself and perform this action of washing their feet reminded them not just in the words that he was saying what he came to do, but in the things he did. He wasn't expecting them to clean his feet as their master, their teacher, their superior. He subverted all of that expectation by being the one to clean their feet, to show that there's a better way, God's way. The second example, I think on Monday, Thursday, where we see Jesus truly humble himself is in the Garden of Gethsemane. So those words that many of you might be familiar with, that he says in Matthew chapter 26, verse 39, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." Every time these words give me goosebumps, because this is Jesus saying, not as I want, but as you want, God. It's living out that line in the Lord's Prayer that we might say out of repetition of your will be done. It's the ultimate test of his humility to submit to God. I wonder if when we pray that line in the Lord's Prayer, secretly in our hearts, we have like a little caveat that's your will be done if, or your will be done but this way. Whereas Jesus reverses that, he says, not as I will, but as you will. He humbles himself before God and trusts in his plan and submits himself before others so that they can live forever with God. There's never been a more perfect and powerful embodiment of humility than Jesus. And so as we move from that humility embodied in the person of Jesus, we're going to move to humility emulated, which is the challenge for us as disciples. How do we emulate that? How do we copy that? How do we be more like Jesus? How can we imitate Christ in the way that Paul encourages us to in this passage? It is a big ask in verses 3 and 4. I think they're the most challenging words. So the Message translation in the Bible puts it this way: put yourself aside and help others get ahead. Don't be obsessed with getting your own advantage. Forget yourselves long enough to lend a helping hand. And now this is where I'm really going to go at a level where you can tell I've not studied theology. I don't know if any of your fans of BBC's The Apprentice. Anyone willing to admit they watch it? Great. There's a few people that are here and the acknowledgement going, I'm with you. It is a guilty pleasure. I had a little bit of fun this week Googling apprentice candidate quotes. There's a plethora to read. Not all of them suitable for consumption this morning, if I'm honest. However, there are a few that I think link with this theme of humility. See if you can work out why. So, if we can have the first one, Martin, please. David Alden, I might look like your business company bear, but if you cross me, I'll knock your stuffing out. Very kind. Next one, please, Martin. I call myself the blonde assassin. I let people underestimate me just so I can blow them out of the water. That's right, Katie Wright. Confidence and cunning. Next up, we have the next two are my complete favourites. I'm like a shark right at the top of the food chain. I take what I want when I want. I truly am the reflection of perfection. Yeah, thank you, Ricky Martin. Not the singer, not the singer. He was very keen not to be known as a singer. Okay, and this one is actually my favourite. See if you can work out why. I'm going to throw people under the bus. I'm going to throw people over the bus. I'm going to get on the bus, take the wheel, and get that investment from Lord Sugar. Jeffrey Mann really ran with the bus metaphor there, didn't he? I was intrigued to see if you could go much further. It is phenomenal that this is a collection of people who clearly haven't got that memo from Paul about putting others before yourself. These are all people who I'm sure are lovely and are very much loved by God, but in business have that attitude of going, I will do whatever it takes to push myself forward. I will pull people back so that I can go forward. Imagine, I don't think the show would be as successful if people on that show actually went, I'm going to step back on this task because I think you're really going to succeed and I want to see you thrive. Imagine if they fully accepted blame for what they've done and said, no, this is on me, you go forward. Probably wouldn't get as much telly coverage, but wouldn't that be just this culture-changing, jaw-dropping moment? But I think being bold in humility like that, as disciples, requires a deep sense of who we are to God and what our value is because of what Jesus did for us and who we are to him. So in our discipleship, I think we need to recognise that our value doesn't come from the success of the world, but from the love of God, because that's then what flows out into our every action and thought. And this picture is because I was reminded this week of pacemakers, not the Harpers, in long distance or middle distance running. In short, these are the people I find absolutely fascinating that participate in the race, but they're generally not seeking to win it. Their role in the race is to set the pace so that others can succeed. And actually, they're people brought in to help break world records. So they literally are participating in this race so that other people can go on ahead of them and ultimately win. And for me, that was a really powerful example of humility this week, of still being a part of it, but actually it's not about our success, about us winning. It's about other people. It's about our part in them. And sometimes putting people first can mean that we get a slightly warped sense of what humility is. We can sometimes mistakenly think we need to go, oh no, I'm truly terrible and awful and you are far superior and better. So it's not about thinking poorly of ourselves or not acknowledging the gifts that we've got and those and things that we can share. That's not proud. There's a difference between being proud of something and being prideful. And I think as Christians, our calling is that God has given us gifts to share, and we need to share those with people. We can build God's kingdom that way. But it's about the glory going back to God. So C.S. Lewis, you might have come across this quote before, articulates it perfectly as he does with many things, saying this: humility is not thinking less of ourselves, but thinking of ourselves less. So you don't need to think that you're a weak person or a frail person or people far better than. It's actually just putting others first. Essentially, we're told by Jesus to love others as we love ourselves. So we need to love ourselves, because otherwise Jesus wouldn't have said that. We can love ourselves by knowing the value that we have because of how we've been made, lovingly and fearfully by God. It's just that when we place our value above others that we start to lose sight of what it is to be truly humble. I was thinking this week of what a modern example might be, and the first thing that came into my head was the Oscars. Possibly because when I was younger, I rehearsed many times my Best Actress, thank you, award speech. It would have been glorious, wasn't meant to be. But if you think about, whenever someone wins an award, they always thank people that have been involved in their success first. So they might thank God, they might thank their family, their friends, their agent, the directors, the supporting cast, the costume, the makeup department, the caterers, they're very important. They might thank their pet goldfish, I don't know. But they read off this huge list of people that they want to thank, and even then they have to miss people out, because they want to credit their success first with the people that have made it possible. It doesn't mean that they can't celebrate their artistic endeavours, but they see that they're part of the bigger picture. I don't ever remember someone taking their award and going, this is correct. Well done, me. I mean, I would love it if someone just went, I absolutely deserve this, no one else helped. So it isn't wrong to succeed, but it is it is right to remember the one from whom all the gifts come from the first place. As disciples, that's our challenge, to keep giving that glory back to God. So, we're nearing the end. We have humility embodied in Jesus, humility hopefully emulated by us, and finally, we're going to consider humility embraced. Because I think more than just copying what Jesus does and doing all that we can to be humble, we need to embrace it so it just becomes part of life. It's something we don't resent, it's something that we relish in. In another of his letters, Paul writes this: clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. And for me, I love this because it implies that that is a daily choice of something that we physically put on. I'm quite a visual person, so to have that idea of every day I start my day and clothing myself in these qualities of compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. To me, it implies that because it is that choice, sometimes it might be hard to pull a particular thing out of the wardrobe and put it on. We might feel that they're not a given thing, but the more that we do that, the more that wardrobe of lovely qualities becomes part of our everyday. There's an incredible story about Mother Teresa, which you might have heard, which really demonstrates this, in case you don't know what she looks like. I was going to show you a different picture, but I'm going to say that for another time. There's a guy called Shane Claiborne who remembers spending time with Mother Teresa, and he noticed that her feet were deformed. That's why I thought it might be a bit early on a Sunday morning to show you her feet. But Googling, go and see, her feet are deformed, and you thought that she might have contracted leprosy, but obviously, pastorally sensitive, wasn't going to ask, it's not a problem, but was a little bit intrigued. Then one of the, he was once asked by a sister, and she said, have you noticed her feet? The sister went on to explain that her feet are deformed because we get just enough donated shoes for everyone in the place where she was. And Mother Teresa doesn't want anyone to get stuck with the worst pair, so she digs through and finds them. And years of doing that have deformed her feet. Shane writes this and says that years of loving her neighbour as herself has literally deformed her feet. That for me is humility in action. She's put others before herself, and actually in her case it's left a physical mark, let alone the emotional one for everyone that she is serving in such a generous and gentle way. She didn't need to tell people about it, make a big song and dance, but she just naturally flowed herself in humility, in kindness, in probably patience, because there's going to be a lot of pain would be in that situation, to put others first. So when we think about embracing humility, I'd love us to think about how we start our day. So we start our day by scrolling on the phone, checking social media, checking emails, worrying about the day, racing to the kettle to get that early morning caffeine fix? Or do we start the day by clothing ourselves in these qualities, starting in prayer, maybe quiet if that's helpful for you, maybe in some worship, by reading the Bible? How are we starting the day? How are we clothing ourselves at the very start of the day? And how can that help us continue being humble inside every day? Humility is really hard. Michael always jokes, I'm the best at being humble. If someone pays him a compliment, he doesn't know how to react. But sometimes it's very easy to joke about it, but genuine humility is hard, because sometimes we can put a false humility on, but being genuinely humble is hard. Choosing others above ourselves is not necessarily instinctive. It can take practice and discipline and accountability. Josh, I love that you're so community. If you're not sure later and need a reminder, ask Josh to start. Thank you, Josh. That's really kind. Humility, everybody. It takes practice, it takes discipline, and it can take accountability from other people, so from other disciples around us. It's why it's so great, actually, that humility's come later, because we've seen all these other disciplines in action, and actually, as we're growing in each of those, we can keep each other humble, keep each other accountable to what we're doing and how we're living. At the end of the passage, Paul says this: continue to work out your salvation. He doesn't say, well done, you've completed it, here's your certificate. It isn't a passable exam, there's not a dissertation that you can write on it, and you can't pass or fail it in the worldly standards. It's a constant journey, that continual clothing yourself in humility. But the closer that we get to Jesus, the more we look like him. The more time we spend with Jesus, the easier it becomes to copy, to emulate his life and his way. And the more willing we will be to build all of God's purposes for us. So, as I finish, let's look to the embodiment of humility in the servant King Jesus. Let's emulate him in our interactions with others. And let's embrace humility in all its fullness as we seek to build his kingdom and become more like Jesus each day. Amen.